Employees are some of the most unique things to work with. Everybody is different, and they're different from day to day sometimes. It just depends where they are. Then you have some that are rock solid stable. They come in at exactly the right time. They do the exact work and they go home. And they need almost no supervision. Where somebody else over here, they need almost daily supervision. It is just an interesting aspect because people are so unique and so different. And there's a certain amount of joy that comes with it. There's also a little bit of pain and sorrow in the process as well. There's promotion, where somebody that you work with, all of a sudden now they're moving upward, and you're part of that development. Transfer, moving sideways, for good sometimes or for bad sometimes. Discipline and demotion, those are always difficult areas and times in your life and your career, but you need to do them and be prepared to do them if you want to have that role of a manager and a leader. Dismissal, moving out of the organization. To some extent, that is part of every leader's job at some point, and you have to just, in essence, you can't always tolerate inappropriate behavior or bad performance. You need to take action, and this is the ultimate action to take. Fairness, what an odd term. What's fair for this person may not be fair for this person or fair for this person. Fairness is a nebulous term. You have to make certain that when you do an action that is legally defensible, you follow good process, and probably, in my opinion, the most important part is when you wake up the next day and you go look in the mirror, you should be able to be proud of who's in that mirror because of the decisions made and not embarrassed that you made the wrong one. Discrimination. That is a big deal, and it's one of the big problems that we have. And a lot of people, probably the most prevalent aspect of discrimination today is age discrimination, picking on people because they're older. Then you also have sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, age, physical ability. You even have genetic discrimination that's been codified into really the Civil Rights Act. So you have a lot of discrimination and other issues. Sometimes people will complain about the fact that I'm being picked on. Well, how are you being picked on? My boss tells me what to do. What is a boss supposed to do? Well, they tell me what to do. That's kind of what a boss does. Okay, so go back, tell me exactly. Well, they wanted me to do my job. I was having a good vibe at that moment, and they wanted me to go back to work. Okay, that's a real conversation, by the way. You'll see all kinds of different aspects of what people are talking about. Employees can be transferred for lots of reasons. Sometimes there's an organizational problem where using their skills at another location will help that location and maybe the location they're at now broaden their experience. Sometimes this changing the things around, if you have somebody bouncing from area to area by their choice, they could be learning the entire organization, and it is an excellent training tool. Sometimes you need to retain their interest. If you're doing the same job every single day, your mind goes numb and you think about all kinds of different things. And you might even, if you're in the wrong situation, you might even put yourself in physical danger because you're bored. Sometimes moving people on a regular basis is a really positive thing. And sometimes you solve problems, especially if there's personal differences with your bosses. It all depends. But at the end, transferring to solve a problem doesn't usually resolve the problem. Usually it's because somebody doesn't know how to sit down there and confront somebody and say, your behavior is inappropriate or your performance is inappropriate. Sometimes somebody's going to have to sit down and say, this is it, you need to shape up or you're going to be gone out of this organization. That is what the leaders have to do sometimes. Disciplining and demotion, you want the demotion process, it's got to be based on unbiased, well-documented evidence. I mentioned this before, that he who judges a matter without hearing the other side, though he decide justly, cannot be considered just. That comes from an ancient Greek philosopher called Seneca, and to this day it makes sense. If you have a supervisor wanting to demote an employee and you are in a position of authority that has say into that process, somebody needs to hear the employee's side of it. Even if the employee sat down and truly deserves it, they need to be heard to make certain their voice is out. Did you know that 2/3 of all lawsuits between employers and employees come from the aspect of how they were treated on their way out the door? Demotion is on their way out the door, not quite all the way, but demotion and termination, they can all lead to lawsuits. make certain there's good opportunity and there's good communication going back and forth. Make certain the employee knows why they were performing poorly and what was expected of them. That goes back to orientation, that goes back to employee development, that goes back to training, that goes back to the supervisor giving them solid feedback. No, this is what it looks like when it's done properly. I want it done this way. That's communication. You need to be clear, blunt, and able to document it. If you have a 1-year probationary period, I have had this. I have had a supervisor come to me on day 364, okay, and the next day was the 1 year, and if they pass probation, they sit down and they become a regular employee, and they come to me and they say, I want to get rid of this employee. I said, have you provided any evaluation? Well, no. I said, okay, well, where's the documentation? I haven't done anything. I said, I'm not letting him go. You need to do your job. Your job as a supervisor is to sit down there and evaluate that employee. They're entitled to that. So they did the evaluation the day before they became official as a regular employee, and they terminated him. It didn't happen just once, and it didn't happen just twice. It's embarrassing to tell you how often that type of thing happens with supervisors that are viewed as good. They just don't do their job in making certain that they have a good, solid evaluation, and that is part of discipline. That is part of demotion. Sometimes you have layoffs. Sometimes people deserve to sit down and be demoted. But layoffs, sometimes it's just a matter of this person has done a good job for X number of years, and all of a sudden, not through anything of their own, they're losing their job. Those are the hardest conversations in my mind with any employee. And I've had to do them, and that's just kind of really difficult. Downsizings are awful. Terminations, once you go through the process, you make certain that the person did it themselves. You should not be terminating the employee. The employee has failed in their objective as an employee of your organization, and because of that, their actions terminate their employment. They're doing it themselves. Don't take credit for termination. Make certain they understand that they get to be credited for the poor performance that they've done. Exit interviews, they're always good. There's different kinds of agreements you can have, but 2/3 of all employer-employee lawsuits come at this moment. Legal requirements, make certain with labor relations, compensation benefits, and everything else that this is all part of the laws that apply in human resources. Human resources, fortunately or unfortunately, tends to be the ones that have to manage all the different laws. Here's a sampling of some of the ones that have. If you have a state like I'm in California, the state of California, without exaggerating, has a 2,000-page code on employment law that is written in 8-pitch font that you have to figure out if it applies to you or not. It's kind of interesting on a good day. So the Privacy Act, Immigration Reform and Control Act, the Sabins-Oxley Act. So you have all the different aspects about fraud to the federal agency. You have immigration reform, make certain that people are eligible to be employed. ERISA set rules for managing pension plans. The FMLA provides employees 12 weeks of unpaid leave for medical or family reasons. Okay, make certain that that's being applied to. In California, we have our own version as well, plus this one. The HIPAA makes certain that health insurance is portable. The Fair Minimum Wage Act. There's a lot of legal requirements all come out of human resources. Some of the most difficult moments you're going to have are deciding on promotion. And is sometimes somebody applies for promotion from the inside and you end up hiring somebody from the outside. That's an embarrassing moment, and it's a frustration for everybody that's around. Discipline, make sure you follow due process, make sure you document everything, make certain that employee feels they were heard. Even if they're not a good employee, they should be heard, and make certain that you can eliminate them from pointing to you in case there's a trial saying, nobody listened to me. You should be the one that listened to them. And here's a big thing. Do not ignore good workers, because if you do too much, they leave. Too much of our time is spent dealing with mediocre to poor performers. You know what they say, 80% and 20%, 20% do all the work and 80% sit back. That's actually true. The good people in your organization, make certain they know they're appreciated in their own specific way. Make certain that if some of the best people are, my experience in human resources is that some of the best people don't really look for public recognition, but they want to have somebody say, you know what, I appreciate the solid work that you do on a regular basis. Sometimes that intrinsic reward is better than the extrinsic reward. So the internal satisfaction of doing a good job and being recognized for that is more powerful to some people than that whole praise with certificates, trophies, and everything else. Make certain the good people hear that they are good and doing a good job on a regular basis. But when it's necessary, you need to be able to step up and deal with tough issues, because that's part of the turf of a manager, and especially more so is that of a leader. Employee management. Take care.